Alright guys, another day and we are back for some more Championship transfer rumours. Since we did the last video, plenty of done deals have gone through, all of which will be discussed in today's video. But as always, if you do miss anything, make sure to get it in the comments down below and we'll try and give it a mention in the next video. 500 likes will be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump in. And we'll start out with a bit of managerial news because Plymouth Argyle have hired Miron Mueslik as their new permanent boss. There had obviously been a lot of speculation over who would be inheriting that job from Wayne Rooney. At one point, Steven Schumacher was the overwhelming favourite. He was tipped with a return to home park. That didn't happen in the end. David Wagner was the favourite at one point as well. But Plymouth have since landed on Mueslik, and I'd be interested to get some Plymouth fans' perspectives on this one in the comments down below. The club does seem to have a tendency to go for quite young managers, don't they? Thinking of their last few hires, really, Wayne Rooney. I suppose Foster was a little bit older, but Steven Schumacher, even Ryan Lowe, when he was first appointed at Plymouth, was fairly young as well. But he signed a 3.5-year deal with the club, obviously. The aim this season is survival. It's as simple as that. Plymouth fans, what's your perspective on this hire? And a bit more managerial news. It now seems as if Raphael Wicke could be going in as the new West Brom manager. Obviously, the Baggies have been linked with quite a few bosses since the departure of Carlos Corberán. Well, the club are now reportedly in advanced talks with the former Young Boys boss. He's got an interesting managerial CV. He's previously taken charge of the likes of Basel, Chicago Fire and Young Boys, as well as the United States under-17s. Baggies fans, would you be happy with that appointment? But jumping into some of the done deals we've seen in recent days, Matt Crooks has signed for Hull City on a permanent basis. We mentioned this rumour a couple videos ago. It has since been confirmed. He obviously enjoyed a short spell in MLS and now is returning back to England. I think that one could be a decent pickup for Hull. Obviously adds plenty of Championship experience to that midfield, and he's a midfielder who definitely has an eye for goal as well. Portsmouth have confirmed the loan signing of Isaac Hayden until the end of the season. I'll say the same that I said about when QPR signed him on loan last season. If you keep him fit, I think you've got a very decent holding midfielder for the Championship there. Big deal we've seen go through in the Championship recently is Enzo Lefebvre joining Sunderland on loan for the remainder of the season from Roma. And I mean, yeah, that Sunderland midfield really is looking quite strong now with the addition of Lefebvre coming in. Now, this one is a loan deal, but quite crucially, Sunderland do have a buy option at the end of the season, and that becomes mandatory if they're promoted to the Premier League. The buy clause is worth €23 million, so around about £19 million is what Sunderland would be paying if they want to sign him on a permanent basis at the end of this campaign. But I mean, yeah, this is one of the most high-profile signings we've seen in the Championship for quite some time, with all the pedigree he's had in European football. Very excited to see how he gets on at Sunderland for the remainder of the season. Chelsea youngster Alex Matos has joined Oxford United on loan for the remainder of the season. We did see a little bit of Matos in the Championship last season while out on loan with Huddersfield, so I'm interested to see how the midfielder gets on at Oxford this time around. We've seen Dion Sanderson joining Blackburn Rovers on loan for the remainder of this season. I think that one could be a decent move for all parties, really. Obviously, he's a player who John Eustace already knows quite well from his time at Birmingham previously, and it seemed like the 25-year-old's career had started to stall at St Andrews this season, not really got that much football. But Sanderson is someone who I have quite liked in years gone by at Championship level, and obviously this was a position that Blackburn were looking to strengthen. So yeah, interested to see how he gets on for the remainder of the season. And they've also added a bit more experience to their midfield as well, as Adam Forshaw has joined the club on a free transfer. He was still under contract at Plymouth Argyle, but the player and club reached a mutual agreement to cancel that contract so that he could complete his move to Blackburn. A massive deal for League One standards is Joe Taylor, who's joined Huddersfield Town on a permanent basis from Luton Town. I've seen it reported that that deal could be worth as much as £3 million as well. The forward hadn't really got that many opportunities at Luton this season, only making 13 appearances from the bench in the Championship under Rob Edwards, so you can see why Luton have sanctioned a deal there, and obviously Taylor dropping down to League One will be looking for regular game time. And speaking of Luton Town, they themselves have confirmed the deal for Isaiah Jones. We knew that Jones would likely be on the move from Middlesbrough in this January window after he hadn't really been in starting 11 on that consistent of a basis under Michael Carrick this season. There were a few Championship clubs who were said to be interested, but in the end it was Luton who won the race for his signature, in the end signing him in a deal that could be worth up to £5 million. So not a cheap deal by any stretch of the imagination. Jones definitely hasn't had the best ride over the last 12 or so months in terms of his form dropping off, but at his best, I think you have got a very good Championship player in there. But those are some of the done deals that have gone through in the Championship over these past couple of days. Now, without any further ado, let's drop into the transfer rumours. So it does look as if Romain Esse will be heading to Crystal Palace. Alex Neil has commented on the deal, saying that the club will receive significant money for his sale. I've seen it floated that Millwall will receive a fee of around about 14.5 million. That could be a little bit higher than that, with a few add-ons included perhaps. But quite crucially, it's also been stated that Palace will keep Esse at the club for the remainder of the season, rather than loaning him back to Millwall, which was an idea that was floated earlier in the transfer window. Millwall fans, I'd like to get your verdict on this one in the comments down below. Obviously, losing a wonderfully gifted youngster, but receiving a big chunk of change in the process. Honestly, I think the move to Crystal Palace does tick a few boxes. Palace have got a good track record with developing players like Esse, picking up gems from the Championship and turning them into Premier League stars. There's definitely a lot of raw potential there. I'm interested to see how he gets on and develops if that deal does go through like we expect it to. We've got Jude Bellingham, who's continuing to attract interest from Premier League clubs. On last time's video, or the one before that, we were speaking about Arsenal and how they were circling around the Sunderland youngster. Well, it has been reported that Bellingham is more than content at Sunderland for the time being, and that he's not pushing for a move in this January window or anything like that. I think that'll come as good news for Sunderland fans, that Bellingham clearly hasn't had his head turned by any of this Premier League interest in recent days. I do think we could get a different story in the summer window perhaps, where I expect there to be a lot more interest, but there's still Premier League clubs who are sniffing around, albeit they're yet to submit an official offer. Middlesbrough are reportedly weighing up a loan offer for Bournemouth goalkeeper Mark Travers. Now, this one would be an interesting move for Borough, and I'd be interested to know what this means for the long-term future of someone like a Seny Dieng, let's say, who obviously came into this season as Middlesbrough's #1 goalkeeper, has missed a chunk of the season through injury, but his form hasn't been particularly top-notch throughout the season. Statistically, Dieng has been one of the weaker goalkeepers in the Championship this year, so it looks as if the goalkeeping department is an area where Carrick is open to strengthening the squad. Listen, I'm a big fan of Mark Travers, always have been. I think he's a very safe pair of hands in the Championship. He's obviously 25 years old and not really playing regular football for Bournemouth because Kepa's their #1 at the moment. So yeah, that would be a deal. I can see why Borough would be open to it. Also worth mentioning for that rumour as well, I have also seen Watford linked with Travers as well, so it'll be interesting to see where he does end up if Bournemouth do sanction that loan deal. Bulgarian attacking midfielder Martin Petkov is someone also under consideration by Borough according to reports. He's currently playing in Bulgaria and so far this season has 4 goals and 2 assists. 21-year-old is on a long-term contract at his current club, which is valid until 2027. A few sides seem to be sniffing around him. Could we see Jonjo Shelvey returning to the Championship? Well, Burnley have reportedly been in talks with the former Nottingham Forest midfielder, who most recently was playing in Turkey, but his contract in Turkey was recently cancelled by mutual consent, so he is available on a free transfer, and it looks more than likely that he will be moving back to England. Jonjo Shelvey, obviously I remember him back in the Championship, back in the 2016/17 campaign, that promotion season with Newcastle, where he just looked streets ahead of the division at that time. Obviously no longer at the very peak of his powers, he's 32 years old now, but that'd be a very interesting addition for Burnley. And it's interesting that Burnley are looking to strengthen central midfield, as Josh Brownhill's future is currently up in the air. The Burnley midfielder does have his contract expiring at Turf Moor at the end of this season, and there is plenty of interest in the 29-year-old right now, with both Celtic and West Ham among the clubs who are said to be interested in the Burnley midfielder. Obviously, it goes without saying, Brownhill has been a really good performer for Burnley in the Championship once again this season. He's got 9 goals and 3 assists from midfield so far. He's closing in on 200 appearances for the club now as well. He's been there since 2020. So yeah, what happens with his future over these coming weeks will be very interesting to see, and whether or not he commits his future to Burnley or his head is swayed by a move elsewhere on a free transfer. Coventry have expressed an interest in signing Chelsea youngster Samuel Raksaki on loan for the remainder of the season. Obviously, we expected Lampard to maybe use his Chelsea links at some point of this window. So far this season, the youngster's made 4 senior appearances for Chelsea in the Europa Conference League. Although the midfielder does look likely to feature in Chelsea's FA Cup tie this weekend against Morecambe, so any sort of loan deal won't be sanctioned until after that time. Had a little bit of an update from Unai Emery relating to the future of Louis Barry. Obviously, by now I'm sure you're well aware that pretty much half of the championship is after the Aston Villa youngster to try and secure a loan deal for the second half of the season. Unai Emery was recently asked about Barry in a press conference and basically came out and said the club hasn't made a definitive plan on what they're doing with the youngster yet in terms of where he's going to go for the second half of the season. Obviously, we know a lot of championship clubs are interested. Recently, we've spoken about the likes of Middlesbrough, Derby, Millwall, Leeds, Sunderland. Loads of championship clubs are after the youngster, but going off Unai Emery's words right now, there hasn't been a concrete decision on what to do with the youngster just yet. And we've had quite a big update in Norwich City's pursuit of Slavia Prague winger Matej Jurasek, with the Canaries reportedly agreeing a fee of around about £5.8 million to go ahead and sign the winger. Now, this is quite timely for Norwich. I'm sure the club will be keen to get this deal over the line as quickly as possible, especially with Borja Sainz recently being hit with, I think it was a 6-game suspension, wasn't it? So with a deal seemingly being agreed between both clubs, it seems more than likely that that deal will go through in the coming days, as long as there are no sort of hiccups with the medical or anything like that on the player's side. But there you guys have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. A bit of a quicker installment of today's one. Obviously, we've got loads of FA Cup action coming up this weekend as well. Plenty going on in the Championship right now. As always, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. But apart from that, thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you all in the next one.